Hi everyone, and welcome to this third video in our series of event storming modeling videos. In this video, we're going to dive deeper than we already have, and we're going to add commands and constraints to the notation. You'll have noticed that we've written a lot of nodes so far, and the goal of, one of the goals of this video is to turn these nodes into actual model with commands and constraints. And that's what we're going to show you here.
Like I use a lot of remarks and questions sort of to get to that end first. Do you have a different approach?
Well, I think in the beginning, it's a good idea to use the remarks to actually move forward and learn a lot. So sometimes I even start a session where I'm only like listening to the high level story and writing down remarks and then moving deeper. But it's true that at some point, you need to make sure that the remarks actually turn up in something that's usable and that they're not just remarks. And often, at that point in time, I start using more constraints, more commands. Well, we haven't used commands yet, but commands, constraints, queries, more. So I think it's a good idea to actually do that right now. I'll duplicate the frame again so that we have a new version. Let's call this event storming, adding commands and constraints. I'll also, I'll move this piece of information a bit on top. I'll remove the rider purchase the bundle for now. Well, it's not something we've discussed so far. And put everything, or most of it, more centered, or a bit on top, and then we can actually start here. So the fact, here you have when and how does this happen. That is something actually that when I think about it as both modeler and domain expert, this is actually something that, because it also has the word experimental, this is something that we're going to need to model in different kinds of ways, meaning that, well, how many times do we calculate it? How often do these prices or these rates per minute change? Is it something like it's actually fixed, or is it something that changes often? Who is going to determine the prices? How are they going to determine it? As a domain expert, I can right now tell you, like, we're probably going to use, like, there are two things that are really important here, and the first one is that we have something that's called fleet management, where we would need to redistribute bikes, that's something that if we can change the prices so that the bikes are distributed automatically more easily. And the second thing is, some stations are going to be really popular in the morning, and some are going to really be popular more in the evening. So we're going to play around. But actually, maybe I went a bit too deep in here. I would say I would leave this out of scope for now, and just say that we take the assumption that we know that there is a rate per minute. Because this, if we go into this, we're going to go into a completely different set of requirements than the actual ride. So I'll actually move it like this, and let me just move this out of the way, maybe. I'll just move it out of the way. It's something, it's happened. It is interesting to know, but it's not part of the current exercise, not of the current scope. Okay, so let's go ahead. So we said the rider on his app shows an overview of stations nearby with availability and rate. As soon as we go deeper and we go to UI, I sometimes try to actually like not just do commands and events, but sometimes I will draw something really quickly. This kind of drawing is not super great, but it gives you like an idea. This has to represent streets. And then you can show dots with this is a station, 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 and then maybe you are here. And it might show you something like the numbers here. There are 3. This one has 12, and this has 1 bike available. That is something I sometimes add because it helps understand the story. Of course, if you have designs already available or you have UX people available, then definitely include them in the sessions. But so that is this is the first thing, and then we get here. So what we want is that we will have a command. We probably are going to have some constraints in between, and then we have the outcome being the event. So the command, I think I would still call it start ride. Maybe we could also call it start. We could also call it accept rate and start ride. I'm not sure. Like I like just start ride, but it's useful to know that accepted, that they also explicitly accept the rate. So maybe we just make it explicit. So accept rate and start right. Okay. If we want, we can do a similar thing again and say we have the app, but now we are looking at a station. It gives us some information about the station, maybe about the bikes, and it says this one costs you 3 credits per minute, and you have the start ride button here. And then of course the start ride button is that command. Okay, and then we see that a positive saldo is required to start a ride, so I probably put that already here. There are some other constraints. Maybe I'll move them around. But one of the other constraints that we have is that there needs to be a bike available. Station must have a bike available. And then that is still a useful this one that's still a useful remark. So we don't need a specific bike at this point. We just need to make sure that there is a reserved. I think we need to look into that one more, but that's already a level of detail that I probably only do at a later point in time. Let me just, so we have the rate accepted, a rider accepted the rate per minute. Let me move stuff so that we have actual space. Then for this one, I will put a command and constraint in between again. The reason being is, like we said, this here happens on the back end somewhere. This is something we need to send to the actual station. So this is going to happen somewhere else. So I'm going to model this with command constraint event again, and then I'm going to have command constraint event as well. So we, as a so the backend, except we know, okay, we initiated the rate per minute, so we initiated the start writing process. So we need to send something to the station. So let's just call it reserve bike. Is that okay? And then, well, we have two options here. Yeah. So, well, two possible conditions. A bike must be available. Again, that's the constraint. So we can now actually, I put this constraint in here, but that's not actually needed anymore because we explicitly have this. Yeah, sorry about moving. We explicitly have it like this. So, and what's often useful, is to make this one red, for example, and this one green to show what's the positive and negative outcomes. And so when the station was able to reserve a bike, then we can actually say the start right, but it's also happening via a system. If you annotate the system calls, do you also want to annotate which ones are made by the app in the driver, for example, or do you think the app, the really nice design of the app is sufficient for that?
You can do that. What I often do is like we have this icon here that sort of
Mm-hmm.
indicates it's the rider, and when there is an exception, I add it as a yellow one. Or you can just add them for all commands, who exactly is doing this,
Okay.
to make it more clear. So whichever you prefer.
Well, it's okay like this. It's okay. Doesn't matter. Just let's make sure that it's clear for everyone. So that shows already that the commands, of course, are not only sent by humans, but can also happen by systems. So here we have an interesting one. Start right was started. What is the actual constraint at this point in time? Well, we could, there are some things we could do. We could move this constraint over here, but because this is actually at this point in time, checking it is good, is also okay. So here we're already also thinking about design solutions, because for a domain expert, what we want is that there is a positive saldo when you start a write. Now, there are multiple options. We could just duplicate it and do the check multiple times. On the other hand, this is a process that's short running, and there is, you should not be able to start multiple rides at the same time. You cannot ride with two bikes at the same time. So it's actually not necessary that we, that's actually that's another constraint that we probably want in between here. But in both cases, it's like, where do we want to put it? I'd say that the reason I'm putting them at the front right now is because there's communication with the station is a bit more expensive. So I'm already making a design choice here. It's a bit more expensive. We need to communicate with an external hardware system. So if we can first check the cheaper constraints and then do the actual reservation of the bike, we don't need to, we're not, we're not doing things like, okay, we first do the reservation, then we do the checks. The checks fail, we have to undo the reservation, and so on. Okay, so that is the reason why I'm doing it in this order. And if we do it like that, I'm going to put the word always here, and always is like one of as a trigger word. It really triggers you to think about, is it really always the case? Yeah, you could also like just remove the constraint from this, but that hides that this is an always. It hides that you have thought about it, and it, yeah. So that's why I prefer using those always trigger words. I see that you.
I also,
Yeah.
yeah, I captured in a black sticky the design choices and the reasons why we're doing it, just for further reference.
Yeah. I think that, so it's communicating with that system that's expensive, and also we have a higher probability of having to revert the reservation, which is also, well, part of what's expensive. Yeah. If we needed to be 100% sure that at the point that we start the write there's also still like saldo available, we could do the constraints multiple times, but as domain expert I say this, it's not necessary here. Okay, so now we have the start write, and the write was started, and then we let's increase the size, and then we get over here, and I'm going to duplicate this this notification that some time happened, because there can happen sometime. There can be some time that before they're at the station, and now we do have some interesting bits, like what we need to decide how this is actually going to work. Right now it's QR codes, so at this point I'd probably switch back to a specific, like at the specific implementation we have again. So here is going to be scan QR codes, and the result of the scanning of the QR code is actually that they prove they're at the station. So there is going to be some constraint. There are some constraints in between, of course, but the rider in the app, I'm not going to attempt to draw a QR code. Well, but
oh, come on.
But so we have their camera view, and they, yeah, probably it okay. I'll we have the QR code here. So yeah, and they scan it, and it goes immediately through, and then it starts spinning or something, and that is actually this thing is scanning of the QR code. And now we do have some constraints, like, yeah, the constraint is there has to be must have write started at this station, otherwise we cannot yeah, we cannot do that. And here yeah, you can immediately see, so yeah, that you could say, well, we know that it's part of the same flow, but yeah, it's yeah, that's how we know that we have that here. The QR code must match. The thing is, a QR code is just data, yeah. So it's, yeah, they need to, like, I'm not sure we need to put in the QR codes much, but like the validation needs to be triggered. So how I see this being really implemented is that the station generates a QR code, for example, with a random maybe just like some token, You scan that, the app sees the token, and it sends the token over to the backend. Backend sends that token to the station. The station knows you have something like this. I would say let's keep it. Well, yeah. Do we want to go deeper on that one, or do we say?
I'm adding it just here for
Yeah.
something we can come back to later. This is actually done by the station because in order to scan a QR code, like this must have happened, right? And then it's more that
Yeah, the token. Yeah. Just to be clear, I think we need to say this part here. Well, that's how it's going to work. But if we're looking at implementation here, we need to think about things like how are we going to securely do this. So I'm not sure if it's already a design decision, but it's more like we need to think about how we're going to secure. Yeah, design needs to be secure. Yeah, like it doesn't have to be. It's not like we're protecting very private things, but it's not something that it should not be easy to spoof the token in any way, or we really need to be able to validate that you're there. Of course, the fact that it's a QR code that's generated still leaves you like, you could take a photo, send that photo over to someone else, and they scan that photo, and that's similar. But that's things I think we cannot prevent if we're going to use QR codes. Maybe something else here. We actually have a backup if the QR code, if your phone, the QR code scan, your camera doesn't work, for example, there is also a text field where you can put actually the same token, and you can submit that, and that's doing the same thing basically. You're sending over that token to the backend so they can validate okay, you're here and the station has something. When we're going to dive deeper, we will need to, this is something we need to design even more, but I would say that's for lots of things. Like when we're actually going to look at how should we implement, we know that this part is more complex because we have both communication with the backend and with the station. The station needs to check that, there needs to have happened some communication already. The station needs to know, okay, I had a bike or something, and we need to say, okay, they proved that they're at the station. We need to design it more. That's what I want to say.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry for that. So after that, so what if there's a long time between a rider started and they proved they're at the station? That's something we can actually handle right now. So we can, at the moment, we have different solutions or potential solutions again. So we could also, the question is, what is a long time? That's for the domain expert. And how do we handle it? So as domain expert, because the feature is actually that you can start your write before you're at the station. So we don't want this to be like 1 minute, because then we're basically removing that feature. What we probably want to do is just notify the rider that they have a ride in progress. So we don't want to force them, we're not going to stop it. We will notify them. So after a while, I'll do it the easiest way right now. After a while, and I'm not going to provide what a while is yet, rider notified that they have a ride in progress. So maybe they made a mistake, maybe they forgot about it and then they could stop it, but maybe it is what they want, and so we just keep it.
Then at some point I would say you would get a if they don't respond, you'll have to have a mechanism there.
Yeah, but that's only after a longer while. So it's actually an interesting thing, and it's something worth diving into. But here it's really important that we make sure that we're not doing anything that like hinders the usability and the user experience. In theory, if someone wants to start a ride the day up front, they're paying for it. So they should be allowed to do it. So when would we actually stop the ride? I would say, maybe based on time, but also when their credits run out. So we could say, just to be clear here, as a domain expert, I also don't have all the answers. I think these are things we're going to need to explore. What are potential solutions, and and see what works best both for us and for our users. But so this can be a long time that it runs, and I would say if your credits run out, you definitely want to stop that as well. Maybe even earlier. Maybe in the future it's something that can be configured by riders or something. But I'd say it's definitely something we need to think about, but not as a first iteration of what we're doing. Okay, so let's keep it here, but forget about it for a moment. So the rider proved that they're at the station. Then we do the unlock station, and it's basically an always. The reason it should be an always, but there can be technical failure, and the technical failure leads to that the station cannot unlock the bike. That's actually an interesting one to explore, because in this case, and that is part of the main use case, in this case we either need to present, so we have different options. If they cannot unlock the bike, well, if it's the last bike at that station, we probably just want to cancel the ride.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not the last bike, well, then we just give them another bike. So I'm going to put another constraint after this one. Last, I'll write them as questions now, because I think they read easier. You could confuse them with a query, but they're like a query constraint maybe. Is there another bike available at the station? That's question 1, and if the answer is yes, then we can let me first write it as a propose that bike. If the answer is no, If the answer is no, we want to, yeah, I think the only, so what we'd like to do, well, we're going to cancel write was cancelled, but we also are going to say propose to start write at the new station. Some remarks here as domain expert. If that station is more expensive than the station they're at, I think we should offer them the same price or the same rate. We should offer basically the cheapest rate. So either from this station or from the other station. Yeah, and we might need to do something else as well. Now, the fact that the write was cancelled, if we want to go deeper in that, also means we need to make sure that that bike is available again. Eh? So here, there is actually, this is definitely something that is that we need to dive deeper into in the interactions between backend and station. Yeah. So let's not do this yet. We can do that at a later point. But so yeah, this is clearly something that's not worked out completely. When we proposed that bike, that's also something that needs a bit more work. But so let's let's move forward first. So here we could say we could do something like we could put a command and a constraint before this one, but the actual picking up, that's a physical action. So for me, writing down here pick up bike, it doesn't really make sense because it's not something the driver does in the app. It's not something that they do, that the system does. It's really, they pick it up and that happened. And the station detects that the bike was picked up. So the fact that it's picked up and that the station detected that, that's the event. And it's not something that's triggered by a command or a constraint. Okay. So now we do have some interesting other cases. So what can happen here? They notice something's wrong with the bike. And so what that means is they want to cancel, they want to do something. Basically, they want to say pick a different bike. That's something they need to be able to say. Or you also have cancel write. So basically, you as a rider, imagine you walk over there and you see the bike has a flat tire. Well, then you need to be able to pick a different bike. And if you pick a different bike, it's going to be the same thing. Is there another bike available? That's one. Also, we're going to ask you, why do you want to pick another bike, so that you immediately you need to give a reason for picking different bike, so that we can decide, okay, this is a bike that's not longer available, it's actually broken. And yeah, we need more space all the time. That's okay. We have Miro. Okay, Hines trying the cleaner version of my mockups.
I am not very good at stuff like that.
And you named this being good. Okay. So yeah, and we can also allow them to cancel their ride. We would of course prefer them to pick a different bike, but we would love it. Yeah, they are allowed to cancel it as well. And if they cancel it, we still need to do some calculations for the price. What are we going to charge? That's a question here. So let me first indeed look at what is, yeah, that's an option, and then next to that we can have in gray maybe cancel right. How do I have no idea how to change the font.
I don't have an idea either.
Oh yeah, but I'm going to do it like this. Cancel right. Okay. And that is basically, yeah. So what you now shown is that pick a different bike includes a reason. With reason. Yeah, cancel right. I would also say that they need to provide a reason they cancel it. So let's also add that. And so let's first model pick a different bike. Is there another bike available at the station? Then we're going to propose that bike. Otherwise, we're going to have to cancel it as well. I just duplicate those things. We know we need to work this out more, but it might be the same thing. It might be something different. Yeah, now that we have a mockup, I can probably use actual arrows here. Okay. Now, if they cancel it, or if they want to cancel it, well, we will definitely allow them to cancel it. But what is important is we might still charge them something.
Yeah.
The reason being, if they were at home and if they were at home and they clicked on start ride 5 minutes before they scanned the QR code, we'd want to let them pay for that because they still made the bike unavailable. So in that case, I'd still want them to pay for that 5 minutes. If the duration between starting the ride and scanning is very short, then we don't. Then it's fully cancelled, of course. So here, cancel ride with reason. Then we will cancel it, but we will also have a price was calculated, and I'll put that in between. The constraint is going to be something. The constraint is going to be, or the constraint is going to show you how we're going to calculate. So we could say if the trip ride duration less than 2 minutes, then it's free. Right, if it's more than 2 minutes, we calculate it. That could be one option. The other option could be just deduct 2 minutes from the ride. That's also an option, of course. So these are different options. So that needs to change, and nothing was charged. I would probably say nothing was charged. because
Yeah.
the nothing happened. I think it's useful to make this explicit. And with explicit, I mean actually see it as an event. And having
Yeah.
the event nothing was charged is something that's useful. Nothing happens feels like, okay, nothing really happened. But here it shows we made the decision. We made the decision to either charge something or not charge something. And we can combine both of these, and we could, if the duration is bigger, then we could say deduct 2 minutes from the write, and then we have this, always price was calculated. Okay.
Yeah. The nothing happened is like if because of some constraint, and then you don't want to capture it, I still make that explicit
Yeah.
with nothing happened. Like
Yeah.
it ends here for us.
Yeah, that's definitely useful as well. The thing here, there is a difference. So if in this case it's the driver, the rider that canceled the ride. Here it's we are not able to deliver a ride. So if we have to cancel the ride because no other rides are available, then we cannot charge anything, because we were unable to provide them with a ride. So here I would say ride was cancelled by us or by system, and this is ride was cancelled by driver. So I create two different kinds of events for them, and here it's also ride was cancelled by us. I create two different events for it because there's going to be different flow afterwards. They mean different things.
Yes.
Yeah. And of course, now that we have this, we actually should be duplicating this, and here, of course, we also don't charge anything. Propose a new. So maybe when we clean up this, we are going to deduplicate stuff, but right now I feel like duplication is a better option. Because it's really, then you can look at every flow and it's really clear what happens. Okay.
All right.
So things can happen. Let's ignore that. We already modeled some of the things that can happen right at the moment you're picking this, because this is when you're picking up the bike or around the time that you're picking up the bike, when you're like have a flat tire and you're already driving for 10 minutes, we're going to have different flows. But I think I'm not sure if we need to go in that detail right now.
No, it's okay.
Okay. So what I'd like to do is still move forward. And the story. So the bike was returned to the station. That's the same thing as the rider picked up a bike. They put it back in, so there is no actual command constraint. It's something that happened. The station detects that the bike is back. Okay. And then of course we have some command constraint event, and that is we now say log bike. That's similar to the technical failure here.
Yes.
And at the same time, so I'm going to put it under here, stop write, and we have write was stopped.
Yes.
So yeah, if there is a technical failure, the station cannot log the bike. That kind of information is still useful. Oops. But so yeah, and then this is happening at the station. Basically, the flow is done for the station if the station locked the bike. For the back end, we still need to calculate the price. There's going to be something in there, and then we need to deduct bundles.
You did not copy.
Yeah, I saw. So deduct credits from bundle. Something. So and now here, I removed this one. What happens if not enough credits are available? Now we can actually enough credits must be available. So then this could be full ride was credited. If not enough are available, we could have an event that says partial ride was credited, maybe partial ride price and full ride price was credited, and then of course we will suggest buying a new bundle, and then either that happens, or if they reject it, we're going to generate an invoice. Yeah, that's also the system. Okay. I think, yeah, it's definitely not ready to start implementing yet, but I do think we now understand more. We already made some small design choices, but most of it we actually did is modeled what the domain experts are talking about. So still, we didn't make too much actual design choices yet, which in my opinion is good. If we can first really understand the problem and work that out, and can delay some of the design decisions, that's actually one of the really powerful things that event storming offers. It allows you to model without making big design choices.
All right. So what we have done so far is we gained understanding on how the UI would look like. We know which actors actually are involved, and we kind of see how they have to communicate with each other already a little bit. We understand more about the domain and the business logic and the constraints, while still actually not going in too much design choices at this point. And most importantly, Thomas and I are actually on the same page. We understand how it is supposed to work. So we actually have a shared knowledge when walking away from this session right now.
Yeah. So I would add to that, Hien, that at this point while we know a lot, like you said, we don't really know yet how to design, and probably we know enough about the domain already to now actually start making lots more of design choices and yeah, going deeper into that design. So you agree that that's the next step we can take?
Yeah, that's the next thing we have to do.
Yeah. Okay, so let's have a look at that then.